r/AskReddit. HR employees of Reddit, what was the most ridiculous/hilarious complaint you ever received? I was a manager and had to call our HR in on this one. We had a computer that was sized by multiple people and a couple of girls complained that it had a virus and porn was always popping up when they turned it on in the morning. I decided to have a look see if someone was farking around on the closing shift, so I looked at the security footage and lo and behold, one of the supervisors was watching porn and jerking off. When we called him in, he didn't deny it but said technically he didn't pull his dick out, he just played with it in his pants, so it's not really that bad. The HR guy just looked at him, didn't say a word until after what seemed like forever the jerker said, "So I guess I'm fired," and then walked out. I'm not in HR, but someone called HR on me. I work with a few people that aren't that fluent in English. One of my coworkers was trying to explain to me what kind of tacos he ate and could not remember the word for stingrays. So he took my notebook and drew a picture of a stingrays and wrote the word turtle. So it looked like this, crudely drawn stingray plus the word turtle. A lady I work with went through my notebook, saw the picture of the stingray plus the word turtle. She called HR because she thought I was writing notes about her in my notebook. She said that horribly drawn stingray plus the word turtle meant that I wanted to punch her in the face because she is slow like a turtle. Definitely a reach. I didn't get in trouble, I was just told by my boss that I'm not allowed to talk about turtles anymore in case it upsets her. I rarely talk about turtles, so this isn't really a problem for me. I worked in HR and payroll at a restaurant/hotel. Inevitably I'd get 5 or 6 phone calls from former staff members in mid-April wondering where their tax information was. One former waitress called reaming me out because she couldn't file her effing taxes because of us and she needed her refund since she had damn kids to feed. So I found a copy of her W-2 which had been mailed to her previous address. I noticed she had only worked for us about a week and we hadn't even deducted federal taxes. I went to put her current address in her old employee folder and noticed her manager had written up a dismissal form. It asked if we should ever rehire this employee and he wrote only if she took anger management classes first. Not HR, but my company is too small to have one, so it just falls on me. Used to have an AR clerk who would snack at her desk all day long. We are a pretty casual, laid-back company, so it's not a big deal as long as she was getting her work done. But then it escalated to having food constantly being delivered, tacos in the morning, pizza at lunch, Chinese in the afternoon. It was bizarre, and made it difficult for her to work when she's eating full meals all day. I was on the fence about saying something until she brought in an Instant Pot. She plugged it in and cooked a freaking pork roast at her desk, poured in barbecue sauce she brought and ate on it all day. I was dumbfounded, it was so strange. I pulled her aside the next day and told her how unprofessional it was. She was shocked and told me I was being unfair because I never specifically said no one was allowed to bring in an Instant Pot. She truly seemed genuinely surprised that she wasn't allowed to do that. She scaled it down after that, but I sometimes wonder how much further she would have gone if I never said anything. I was the complainer. My buddy was dating a girl that worked in HR at my company. Their relationship starting was totally unrelated to me, they had gone to college together. He dumped her and she didn't take it well and started threatening my job since I was still friends with him. I lodged a complaint just through the main email, complaints@company.com or whatever it was. My complaint was assigned to, guess who? I ended up having to independently schedule a meeting with the VP of HR because the regular reps and middle managers were protecting their rep rather than believing me. I told my coworker as professionally as I could that it wasn't appropriate for her to be using her phone while at work, teaching kids, supposedly. She spent all her time on Facebook, little kids would be screaming and wailing on each other literally 10 feet away and she was totally oblivious. She complained by email to HR that I was rude and confrontational. They pulled me aside and told me to be more careful about how I spoke to coworkers. I told them my side of the story, they spoke to her again. She got a written warning. They didn't tell me what happened, but I gather from office gossip that she lost her shit and started shouting at the HR staff. Rude and confrontational perhaps? Anyway, she's on her final warning now and she has a habit of hitting on the married dads of our kids, involving children in adult matters. Why hasn't your mummy paid your fees yet? Don't you want to come to daycare? And generally being an unprofessional self-absorbed pedoso. Can't wait until she gets fired. Not an HR employee, but I recently reported a bus driver for bringing his girlfriend to work and rubbing her feet while driving. She sat on the spot right behind the driver and put her feet where he could reach for them with one hand. I took a picture of the whole thing and debated on what to do with it for a while. On the one side, I didn't want this guy to lose his job nor have to explain why he was rubbing his girlfriend's feet at work. Imagine the awkwardness. On the other side, he missed a turn and then took a U-turn on a downhill blind curve where we could have easily gotten nailed. In the end, I came to the conclusion, when other people's lives are in your hands, that's what your hands should focus on. Not HR. Used to work on an order packing line for a large distributor. If we had an issue with any equipment on the line, we weren't permitted to correct it on our own. We were supposed to turn on a light similar to what you'd see over a cashier's line in a grocery store, and one of the leads would come over to see what was wrong and fix it. Suddenly I have an issue with my printer, and since I already caught hell for not following procedure on it before, I figured I'd try to do as told so I didn't get my wrist slapped again. Go to turn my light on, and imagine that, it doesn't work either. Yelled the lead's name to get his attention, since we weren't supposed to wander away from the line either. Next day I was called into HR for shouting the lead's name. One of the clowns on the line beside mine didn't approve of my shouting. Was once asked to investigate a sexual harassment situation where 3 different women were coming onto a male co-worker throughout their shift. I took down the details, got the names, easy peasy investigation so I thought. A week later, nobody by these descriptions or names had ever worked for the company. I decided to talk to the gentleman again. After a lengthy conversation where things didn't quite stack up, I asked him how these women communicated with him. I shit you not, with a straight face, he looks me in the eye and replies telepathically like I'm some kind of idiot. I had never sent an employee for psychological evaluation up to that point and I hope never to have to again. So yeah, I was asked by a delusional schizophrenic to conduct a sex harassment investigation on the voices in his head. Not a HR employee here, but I've heard some stuff from various sources. Complaint 1. This was against a teacher in, let's say, a not very well rated school. The person in question was extremely laid back, like this is the guy who gave me and a few others a lift back from a party, and when 2 of the others were about to beat the shit out of one another in the middle of the street, his response to "should we do something?" was maybe, but I say we just wait a bit, nothing will probably happen. The complaint was that he'd picked up and thrown a table at a student then punched another student in the face. It was found to be false. Didn't stop the little shits trying complaints against more staff, including one of the let's say less academic students claiming a teacher threw him through a window only for his claim to fall apart when asked to show the broken window. Complaint 2 told to me from someone who works in a factory as HR. My Spanish coworker stole my boots and threw them into the crusher, which sounds funny enough, except the Spanish coworker was called in to answer to the complaint and his defense was that he hadn't thrown the guy's boots into the crusher because here were his boots, while the Spanish guy was standing there in just his socks. I dream of a world where HR deps are no longer a thing. Just some simple rules to follow: don't sexually harass anyone, don't be a racist, treat people with the respect due a professional environment. 90% of HR people I have worked walked me through onboarding, then went back to sitting on their ass and jacking up the company's burn rate in direct proportion to their salary while enforcing what they picture to be corporate political correctness. That's a good time to leave your startup actually. When they hire an HR department, if you were in early enough, you have vested a shitload of equity by then and you can get out before the company becomes a soulless corporate hellhole. Not HR, but I talk to people so I know a few stories. Here's my favorite in terms of how ridiculous it is. HR director found hookah in a women's bathroom. It wasn't hidden or anything, it was just there in the plain sight on the floor. Turns out one employee is addicted to smoking hookah and she brought it on her first day of work. She then demanded to be allowed to smoke hookah in the bathroom, but they came to the agreement that she can take a break every day to go out and smoke it in the nearby hookah place if she wants to. Little background: I work in IT in Ukraine. IT specialists here make good money, and they are also spoiled as fuck due to high demand. So people complain about all sorts of stupid shit all the time, like free lunches are served in containers they don't like, or elevator needs an AC and etc. My work has one men's toilet. Had one coworker complain that another guy kept using the bathroom before him, and doing big ol' poos. But the way he said it was like this guy knew when he was about to go, ninja'd in just before him, dropped a massive stinker and then forced the other guy to marinate in the smell when he went for a leak afterwards. We ended up adding a can of air freshener to the bathroom, and the next complaint that came in was the poo guy never used it. HR employee for a group of gaming servers got a like 20 or 30 something girl come to me and complain about a player calling her a tit streamer and shit through VC, and she wanted me to launch a full-on investigation of every 10k players in the server and figure out who it was. Not me, but one of my friends works as an Amazon customer chat rep. One time, she got a complaint that a customer wanted to return a Funko Pop figure because they ended up getting the Chase variant, instead of the regular variant. For those that aren't aware, some Funko Pops have a Chase variant which is basically the same figure but with something added. For every 5 regular variants, 1 Chase variant gets produced. TL, Dr. Customer complained about getting the rarer figure and wants to get the more common one.
I'd love it if you liked and subscribed.